The Old Man and His Children, retold by Jane Watson. Kamu sat on his 3 legs in the shade of the spreading mungumo tree. On its fig-like fruit, mouse birds and green parrots were quietly feeding. The old man sat very still with his eyes closed, but he was not asleep or even at peace. How could he be at peace when he raised voices of his twin grandsons could be heard all over the compound? Kamu sighed at the sound, which disturbed him even more than the insects which kept trying to settle on his head and shoulders. At least he could drive these away with his horsehair fly sweat. It should have been peaceful in the compound, for the woman and old folks were inside her huts, and the young man had gone hunting, but it was not. For Mungwi and Njurgo were arguing as usual. "You should help me move the cattle," shouted Ngwegi. "I am busy," Njurgo shouted back as he went on chasing his hoop. "If you help me with the cattle now, I will help you with the milking tomorrow morning." Ngwegi called out after him. "Huh," snorted Njurgo. "You and your promises. Even if I help you with the cattle, you would find a way of getting out of helping me with the milking." "I would not." "Would." "Wouldn't." The argument continued until Unwegi saw that he was getting nowhere and began, noisily and grumpily, to get on with his job. With a great deal of shouting and whistling, he drove the cattle into their new enclosure. Then he returned to the compound feeling very hot and tired. The sight of Injurigo coolly continuing with his game of hoopstick was the last straw. Nwagi rushed over to him and kicked the hoop with all his might. It went spinning madly away, and Injurigi shouted and lashed out angrily at his brother. Soon blows and insults were flying to and fro between the two boys. At this, the twins' mother rushed out of her heart to pull the boys apart, boxed their ears, and gave them a good scolding. As she stalked back to her hut, she called out to them, "One more quarrel from you and your father will hear about it." Silence at last. The boys stood and glared furiously at each other. Having heard and seen everything, Kamu now called out, "Come, Injorge, come, Nwegi, I have a story for you." The boys turned and walked slowly across to the tree, their faces still angry and swollen. Njoroge flung himself down beside the old man's stool and began to draw pictures in the dust with one fast and furious forefinger, while Nwegi sat hugging his knees. Kamu spoke in his quiet old man's voice. "Once there was an old man who had 7 sons. They should have been his pride and joy, but they were not. And why? This is because they quarreled and fought all the time, giving their father no peace." At his feet, Njorgi's dust drawing became even more feverish, and Nwegi tightened his grip on his legs and pressed his face against them. One day, Kamu continued, the old man asked his sons to gather round, for he had something to show them. So they sat around their father, wondering what he would show them. But all he had in his hand were 7 sticks. As the boys watched, their father tied these firmly together. Then he handed the bundle to his older son and said, "Try and break them." The older son strained with all his might to try and break the sticks, but he couldn't break even a single one. The same thing happened as each of the other brothers were handed the bundle. The bundle could not be broken, and each stick remained intact within it. Then the father untied the bundle and handed one of the sticks to his oldest son. "Now try and break that," he said. The oldest son took the stick and broke it easily. The same thing happened as each of the other brothers was handed one of the remaining sticks. By the end, every stick had been broken. The old man paused before continuing. "Now, do you understand what I have shown you? You could not break the sticks when they were tied together, for then they were strong. But now how easily you broke them when they were separated, for then they were weak. Come on, stop speaking for a moment." He stretched out his arms and gently laid a hand on the head of each of his silent grandsons. "Njoroge, Nwigi," he said, "it is the same with people as with sticks. Our village is strong, for we all work together and live in peace. If we were to fight and quarrel among ourselves, how easily would our enemies defeat us?" Kamo put his hands back in his lap and closed his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was almost a whisper. "This old one has told you the tale of another old one. You may find wisdom in it, if you wish. Now go, sons of my son, for I am very tired." The boys stood up, their faces no longer angry and swollen, but ashamed and thoughtful. Then they walked quietly away, leaving their wise old grandfather to fall peacefully asleep on his three-legged stool in the shade of the spreading mungomo tree.